Good day, everyone. We will be doing a presentation, and our study topic is COVID-19 impacts on construction activity, assessment on how construction companies adjust on new safety guidelines in Dinalupihan, Bataan. And the presenter will be myself, Jolan Pagio, Jericho Guadalupe, Jomar Albay, and Lawrence Soriano. Background of the study. Safety has always been challenged on construction sites, but the coronavirus pandemic has made maintaining safety much more difficult. The rapid spread of COVID-19 forced thousands of construction projects to suddenly shut down. Now that many construction projects have opened and work is resuming, construction companies have the difficult task of protecting workers and project personnel not only from traditional safety hazards, but also from the spread of COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has a huge impact in the construction industry, which relies heavily on human resources. The construction industry, which contributes about million of workers to the country's labor force, is at risk. In this case, it is important to establish procedure at construction sites to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Construction sites operating during the COVID-19 pandemic need to ensure are protecting their workforce and minimizing the spread of infection as a matter of global public health. Having construction staff secured on site during the COVID-19 pandemic is a serious business case. Statement of the problem. Despite the availability of an enormous amount of information from different sources about safety guidelines against COVID-19, and especially the Department Order Number 39 Series of 2020 Construction Safety Guidelines for the implementation of all DPWH infrastructure projects during the COVID-19 public health crisis issued by DPWH, there's still a concern about how the construction company is implementing this new safety guideline, how it affects the performance of the workers in the workplace, and how the construction companies adjust to the new safety guideline in the midst of the pandemic. Significance of the study. The result of this study is beneficial to construction companies, construction workers, construction leaders, and future researchers. For the construction companies, they benefit by adapting and to improve staff retention that has tremendous impact on a firm's productivity and competitiveness. For construction workers, they can tell their concern and for them to speak up what are their conditions about the new safety guidelines. For construction leaders or employers, this will give the information about the concern of their workers so they can act accordingly to the apprehension of their employees or workers. And for the future researchers, this paper will guide the future researchers because this can give empirical data as basis to the information that was collected to the construction company and its staff, including the workers.
Why Dinalupihan? With the spread of the COVID-19 worldwide, there is no place is safe now. Every place has the same situation because of the threat of the virus. The researcher chose Dinalupihan Bataan because it has low COVID-19 positive cases. For the safety of the researcher, and there is a greater chance that researcher will be able to survey properly, and also to assess the current condition of the construction company and workers, and to identify the improvement opportunity about the safety in our hometown. Objective. General objective. The general objective of this research is to determine how building and construction company adjust safety procedure and help measure against the COVID-19 pandemic. Specific objective. To assess how company face new challenges in trying to minimize the risk of spreading of the COVID-19. To identify the factor affecting the performance of the worker in the midst of pandemic, and to determine how company leaders and safety personnel acted proactively to protect the health and safety of the workers. Conceptual framework to determine how construction company adjusts on the new safety guidelines in Dinalupihan, Bataan. First, we get the list of construction company in Dinalupihan, Bataan. Then, we communicate with the engineer, architect, or representative of the company. Next, we conduct a survey with the respective location of the construction company, followed by gathering the data through interview, online, and on-site survey. After we gather the data we need, we analyze the data gathered to come up the status of the construction companies during the COVID-19 pandemic in Dinalupihan, Bataan. To calculate the number of companies. N, the population size is equals to 11. P, the percentage value is equal to 0.5. C, is the C-score is equals to 1.960 using the confidence level of 95%. And D, margin of error is equals to 10% or 0.10. Using the Slobin formula, we got the N is equals to 10 companies. The researcher used the simple random sampling to survey the workers, and then purposive sampling is for the company representative.
Table 1 presents the assessment of the employees when asked if social distancing has been implemented in the place where they work. Despite the state of proper social distancing, large percentage of 46% of the respondents believe that it was never implemented, while only 1% of them seem open. Second table interprets the assessment of the respondents as to how open is the disinfection of the equipment takes place in the workplace. 39% of the respondents never noticed it, and 4% who often notice it. Third table shows the assessment of the employees on how open is the disinfection within the workplace. Despite the importance of disinfection, only 4% responded with open with large percentage of 41% answered never. Fourth table interprets the results as to how the employees assess the proper disposal of PPE accordingly. 47% retorted that their workplace never placed the PPE in correct order. Table 5 shows the responses of the employees when asked about the monitoring of their health conditions before and after work. Majority of the respondents answered never, and only 1% of them has been monitored always or very often. Sixth table presents the response of the employees when asked if they follow safety guidelines and protocols. Despite the tough reminder about this matter, more than half or 59% of the respondents answered never, while only 1% followed very often or always. The seventh table illustrates the response as to how often does a safety officer do the monitoring. Given the fact that it must be observed at all times, the respondents retorted that only 1% noticed that safety officers monitor always, while a large percentage of 46% answered none. 8 bar shows the response of the workers when asked if they were given a seminar or orientation. With all the 170 respondents, only one of them experienced it always, while a large percentage of 43% never received such. Ninth table interprets when asked if the employer is helping them to prevent COVID-19. It shows that 45% of them retorted never, while only a small percentage of 3% answered open. Last table shows the response of the employees when asked if they feel threatened by COVID-19 in their workplace. Out of 170 respondents, 11% of them feel threatened, very often or always, while a large percentage of 35% never feel threatened.
Graph 1 interprets when employers were asked about their perception regarding the implementation of DPWH Department Order Number 39, Series of 2020. Only 4.5% of them found it easy to implement, while the remaining 95.5% believe that it's hard to implement. Graph 2 shows the response of the employers on how often their subordinates follow the law. 27.3% answered always, while the remaining 72.7% employers answered sometimes. Graph 3 interprets the response of the employers when asked how long will it take for them to finally adapt the law, and only 9.1% of them answered that it will just take days, and 59.1% believe that it may take years to fully implement the law. Graph 4 says when the employers were asked on what is the way that their company implements in order to avoid COVID-19, 63.6% answered implementation of orientation, 22.7% answered social distancing, and 13.6% of them answered that they modified work schedules to stagger work. Graph 5 displays the results of the respondents of the employers when asked if they found it difficult to implement the law. 72.7% answered yes, while the remaining 22.7% answered no. Graph 6 says when the employers were asked if they were satisfied with the performance of the workers during the pandemic, 95.5% said yes, but workers are still adjusting, and only 4.5% of them are very satisfied. Graph 7 shows the answers of the respondents as they act proactively to protect the health of the workers. 45.5% enable improvements in safety and security. 40.9% built it on trust and affiliation, earned, and 13.6% use combination of science, technology, data analytics. Graph 8 interprets the response of the employers when asked about the significant impact of the new safety protocols. 63.6% are still adjusting, and 36.4% of them believe that their company is way safer because of the guidelines that must be followed. Graph 9 infers the response of the employers when asked about the difference between the old and new routine to avoid the possibility of infection. Majority of them, 59.1%, believe that the new construction guidelines are very clear, while the 40.9% responded that either of the two is good to use. Graph 10 shows that when asked about the readiness to face the new challenges posed by COVID-19, only 13.6% are well prepared, 54.5% are still adjusting, and 31.8% of them are somewhat prepared. Conclusions. Based on the findings of the study, the researchers concluded the following. First, majority of the respondents believe that the companies are not fully implementing the proper guidelines and safety protocols. Second, despite the threat of COVID-19 to people's lives, especially to the workers, companies fail to monitor the health of the workers. Third, none from the safety precautions directly affect the performance of the workers. And lastly, companies are still adjusting with the Department Ordinance of DPWH and holistic implementation of safety protocols and guidelines. Recommendations. Based on the findings and conclusions, the following recommendations were made. First, it is recommended that the company should give maximum concentration on the implementation of safety protocols and guidelines to lessen the spread of COVID-19. Second, companies should regularly check and monitor the health conditions of their workers to avoid the oblivious spread of the virus that may greatly affect the performance of the workers. Third, workers must be fully informed about the importance and benefits of safety protocols so they will not be a walking virus transmitter. Fourth, there must be a proper dissemination of information through seminar and orientation. And lastly, further study should be undertaken to apply the results of the study. The research could be broadened to include other companies' handling technique and safety guidelines. That, that's all. Thank you.